And away we go. Hi, it's Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. YouTube, basically. Let me move this a little closer. I should have done a little better prep, but I was racing up against getting a lot of this stuff ready. So, hey, how are you? The question and answer portion of the Penguins live chat, I guess, will come in a couple of minutes. I want to get to, I think, the Penguins sale. And as near as I can tell, nobody else is chasing down the two stories that we are right now. The reason for that is, my gosh, they are complex. I spoke with, well, let's just say I've probably spoken with a half dozen sources, people who really don't want to be on the record, but were happy to share some very high-level information. We're talking people on Grant Street, and we're talking people on Fifth Avenue. That's, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Fifth Avenue. Grant Street is, of course, City Hall in Pittsburgh. Through the course of doing this job for, enough years in radio, we have accumulated sources, people who like us, people want to talk to us. Well, they'll at least talk to us. Like us, that might be an entirely different story. So here's what's happening on the live chat. We'll get to the Penguins sale, the complexities, and maybe why it isn't done yet. I don't know why it's not done, but I'm starting to see a 2 over here and a 2 over here, and starting to think that 2 + 2 does equal 4. Though I cannot confirm there's any connection yet. I want to be clear about that. We'll get into the CBA. Amazing that the NHL just very swiftly made these changes, and the NHLPA went along with a couple of them. This might be, this is another Gary Bettman win. We'll get into them. But it was such a big-time win for the league that there has to be another shoe to drop. Marty isn't stupid. The NHLPA director is one of those guys. He knows how to lose this negotiation to win the next one. He's a sharp cookie. So we'll get into the CBA. The Arty Party. Man, I knew my tweet would kind of go wide. I didn't realize the Arty Party would go viral in Vancouver. People just like losing their minds that he's a Penguin, and the tears and the, oh no. We'll talk about the Penguins captain practices just a wee little bit, but the prospects tournament coming up in, 8-9 days, next weekend, basically. So that's where we are at. Let's start with the sale of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, recall when the rumors percolated heavily, I think it was like June 4th, we published the story. So the rumors started late May, kind of around Memorial Day weekend, bubbling into the next week. I believe we were the outlet that broke the story and the only ones to have had it, where FSG, Fenway Sports Group, sent a company-wide email to all the employees, low and high. Hey, everybody keep your head down. This is a part of the process of finding a minority investor. We've been through it. Just keep going. Nothing to see, nothing to worry about. That was the story then. Now that the story has reached a certain crescendo, that this group the Hoffman Family of Companies has indeed made an offer. And everybody we talk to, even on the inside of the organization, there are some conversations we're privy to where people are speaking as if it's happening. Whereas if they have, they know. How's that? I have to tiptoe a little bit. In writing, you can just hit delete if you don't like that sentence or think it might give away too much. And I'm like, keep your mouth, keep it close, keep the cards close to your vest, Kingerski. So anyway, yes, people in the Penguins organization are speaking and acting as if things are going to happen this time. One source told us, was it last week? It feels real. Now, here is where things get complicated, because here's where City Hall comes into play. Okay? There are a lot of parcels of land around PPG Paints Arena that were gifted to the Pittsburgh Penguins organization upon getting the new arena deal way back in like 2008 when Mario and Ron Burkle got it. Okay? I have not written some of this. I wrote a little bit of it on Tuesday. I kind of set the appetizer and warned you some of this may be coming. I still haven't confirmed the big detail yet. There are parcels of land that need to be developed by late October this year. Now, they don't need to finish development. They merely need to start development. The FNB building is obviously, I think it's done. I think they have inhabitants in there. If not, they're pretty close anyway. The amphitheater has started up there. So, okay. So the Penguins have begun development on those parcels. The other parcels where they haven't. Here is something in the agreement that nobody else is talking about. So you and I here going to know this ahead of everybody else. If they don't, by late October, I believe October 26th is the deadline, the Sports Exhibition and Authority can take the land. So you can begin, you're not stupid, you can begin to draw that process out. The Penguins can ask for an extension. I don't even know if it has to be official. We can't confirm that, we cannot confirm that the Penguins have asked or been granted an extension. That's one of the things that, I've gone back through all of the SEA meeting agendas, and nothing has been mentioned deep into last year. Although I did find out that a couple months ago, the SEA gave the Penguins $421,000 to redo their server room. I assume that's because Kyle Dubas is, all of his analytics people and his analytics team needed a lot more server space in addition to, I'd imagine they're upgrading some of the arena experience and so on and so forth. So they had to rebuild a server room. That's what the SEA is for. That nothing scandalous or salacious there. But there is that complication. If the Penguins were to ask for an extension on the land, the public can comment. Well, if you followed this story for the last 15 years, you know that the Hill District leaders are not happy. They feel like they've gotten the short end of the stick at every turn. In fairness, they very much did, certainly in the beginning. The Lemieux and Burkle group actually started a second corporation to own that land and develop that land so that Penguins revenues wouldn't be used for development. That is according to City Hall, sources at City Hall. I am kind of catching up on this. A lot of this is so inside baseball that I could spend the next couple of months reading up on all of this, and I'm not sure I would be any closer to writing the story than I am today, which is a little bit frustrating. But this is why you and I are talking, right? Please understand, this is why I haven't written it. This is me telling you about the process of chasing this story, just so we're clear. I don't want to see on some crazy blog, Kingerski reports this. I've written what I'm able to report. Now we're sort of talking about the process and the potential complexities. I would assume the Hoffman Family of Companies. There's Bob. Where's Bob Newhart? There he is. That is David Hoffman, Mr. David Hoffman. the founder and chairman of the board of the Hoffman Family of Companies. Their flagship is Chicago. They're big in real estate development. I know some people from Chicago, like, oh, the Hoffmans. Yeah, they did this and this in terms of real estate. Okay. By the way, Ryan Cunningham checks in here to the video. The FNB building is done. Source, my wife works there. All right. Yeah, I thought people were in there. It's good. It's good they got that far. And I guess the amphitheater is coming along. The amphitheater, of course, modeled after the MGM Theater right beside Fenway Park in Boston. At least it was supposed to be. You know how things go, changes, money, time, all of that sort of thing. But it was modeled, or supposed to be modeled and designed after the MGM Theater in Boston. I would assume the Hoffmans, being real estate people, would thoroughly double check all of the deadlines and the values and all of those sorts of intricacies. I would assume if they did indeed make a $1.75 billion offer, they were confident in all of these details. That is an important blunt to any of the chatter down on Grant Street. Oh, this could happen, that could happen. I would assume FSG is on top of it. I know that FSG was in discussions with the city several months ago about some of these parcels of land. And in the past, almost on a handshake, wink, and a nod agreement, deadlines came and went. So you can see why it's very difficult for me to report anything, because so much is both on paper yet simultaneously unknowable. How do I get through that? How do I get through all of that? That's what I've been working on for, good gosh, 2 weeks. Calls and DMs and texts back and forth, like 10 o'clock at night when somebody's like, oh, yeah, I should, I have some time. I'll talk to Dan, and, trying to get more and more information out of this. And I've been pleasantly surprised at the quality of people who have been willing to talk to us. We're not talking to the janitors. Nothing against the janitors. I'm just saying the janitors aren't the ones signing papers. We've talked to people who would be signing some papers through this process. Okay. I think I have taken that conversation as far as I can without being irresponsible. I hope you understand. I hope you realize that I'm trying to figure out exactly what's real, what's on paper as real, and what is conjecture. It's cloudy. 1.75 billion. I suppose it wasn't. Woo! There we go. I suppose it wasn't going to be easy, was it? Let me get my glasses on here. All right. The Driz, I think, asks an important question. So we'll start off with some questions before we get to the CBA, right? By the way, the sound is good. Yeah. Let me double check. Oh, I bet. Ha! I've had the microphone in front of me, but not on for 15 minutes. I am an idiot. All right. Now the sound quality should have greatly improved. Oh, Dan. Okay. The Driz asks this question. Is the sale holding up any potential moves, or is it possible moves are more likely to happen at or near the trade deadline? Hoping Hoffman Group doesn't want to relive the FSG1 last stab with the core three. I happen to have some inside information on this, Driz. the Penguins' mission, the Penguins' path, the rebuild, the retool, the re-whatever. In fact, maybe we should just start copywriting PHN shirts that say the re-whatever, year 2, year 3, is going to continue about its current path, that there aren't going to be changes. You're not going to see the Hoffmans, or at least the expectation is the Hoffmans are not going to come running in, say, stop the presses, stop the rebuild, go get a bunch of old guys. Let's take one more shot at it so we can get some playoff revenue. That's not happening. Now, is the sale holding up any potential moves? I would think not. Any potential moves, remember, Driz, will involve the Penguins sending money out, which makes a sale easier. Money out, sale easier. Money out, sale easier. It's not like the Penguins can miss the playoffs without Erik Karlsson, or it's not like they can't miss the playoffs without Erik Karlsson. It's not like they can't miss the playoffs without Rickard Rakell or Brian Rust. So from that standpoint, no, don't. I know that's always a big question, but that usually is the inverse. Like, oh, well, are they holding off on adding players? Well, the Penguins aren't adding players. The Penguins are adding cheap players that they want to be here for 10 years. And that's how that goes. So let me start here at the top of the questions. Michael says, I call sale BS. Ooh. Listen, Michael, it might not happen, but BS would be, I think, incorrect. It certainly is on the table. Is being strongly discussed. Brian Nusita, every time I hear a Penguins sale, it scares me. I've been through too many almost moves from the city to be able to handle this rationally. Brian, don't worry. The Pittsburgh Penguins have the best television ratings in the NHL. Maybe they slipped to top 2 or 3 over this past year. But they're top of the charts. That's you're not going to move that team. Yeah, attendance is going to take a beating because the casual fans, the arrive late, leave early, yawn through, a dramatic second period comeback, all those people, they go away and you're left with 8 or 10,000 actual people in the building. It's going to look a little ugly for a minute. I think when the team was chasing a playoff spot and the attendance dropped a couple of years ago, that was embarrassing. At the moment, attendance dropping is kind of expected. There isn't that chance for reflected glory. And I think John Steigerwald coined that term some 20 years ago in a sports book. Obviously, John has gone into politics now. But I think that's where I first heard that term, was reflected glory, where people are on board for that winning feeling. When that winning goes away, they're like, yeah, I don't care about the sport. I don't care about these players. I just wanted to be a part of the party and win. So this is rebuilding. We talked ad nauseum last week, like for 20 minutes, about the fan experience and rebuilding the fan culture. I'm not going to get back through that. But Brian, don't worry. The Penguins moving, or that would be almost incomprehensible at this point. The Hoffmans being from Chicago, they can't have a second team there. Can't go to St. Louis. And Louisiana sure as hell doesn't want them. I know that's another big base of operations for the Hoffman family of companies. They own some chocolate, like a Elmer's chocolate. I've never heard of it, but some people in the Midwest were like, oh my God, you're going to love it if they bring it here. I digress. Kyle, it's good to see you too. Ryan says, Dan, if Dubas successfully negotiates a trade for the Carey Price contract, is he more likely to seek a top prospect in return, or to move a veteran contract out. It would be very difficult to move a veteran contract out to Montreal, Ryan, and here's why. Montreal is almost $6 million over the salary cap. So let's just say pick a veteran at random, Kevin Hayes at $3.5 million. Now Montreal is only $500,000 under the cap. After they trade Carey Price, now they're $4 million under. They take on Kevin Hayes, now they're $500,000 under the cap. That doesn't work. That would not put them in a better position than trading Carey Price. So maybe you see a veteran, like a $2 million guy, go the other way. I suppose Noel Acciari, but even then, Kent Hughes, Montreal Canadiens GM, would have to be asking himself, I'm doing this in real time here, is it better to be $4 million under the cap? Technically, you're still over the cap with LTIR. Technically, you're still over the cap. Is it better to be $4 million, have $4 million spending money? I'll phrase it that way. That doesn't accrue more, or is it better to have $2 million that does accrue and maybe have a useful veteran? I don't know. I would probably lean towards I'm not taking any veterans back unless they can absolutely help my team, and I am confident they make me a better team. I'm not taking on somebody that's going to be in the press box. I'm not taking on a bad veteran salary. Top prospect, boy, doesn't Kyle Dubas wish. I saw somebody comment on PHN in the comments section the other day. Well, it's going to take a top prospect like who's their defenseman? David, as a long last name. Rittenhouse is not it. Or Michael Haig. And I'm like, neither of them. They're not giving up a potential franchise, building block like those two guys to get rid of Carey Price for a year. That stuff's not happening. So they're not getting a top prospect. They're not going to be able to unload a veteran that you might want them to. The reality is this is a draft pick and maybe a mid-range prospect that Dubas and Wes Clark like. Don't forget, Carolina did box out or, X out their top prospects in the Jake Gensel trade. Their top 5 prospects were unavailable to the Penguins, and they still got Ville Koivunen, which was, I think, going to be proving a pretty good haul. Anywho, I hope that answers the question. Do you see Gino getting at least 75 points this year? Michael Thompson asks. No, I mean, it's in theory possible if he plays all 82 games. If his wingers put the puck in the net when he puts it on their stick with the chance, 75 points and 82. No, and if I had to bet on that, I'd bet heavily on the under. Not far under. And we're not talking like a 45-point season here. He had 50 points in 68 games last year. We have detailed how terribly his wingers performed with the puck on their stick. Their finishing talent, according to Money Puck, was generally speaking 10 to 15% in the red. If they had been just 10% better, close to average, Malkin would have had about 62 points last season. That's a pretty big jump, but we're not getting to 75 points. Michael also asked about the Highmark patch. I have no idea. If you want to be on, I couldn't give a darn about those sorts of trivialities. I don't wear jerseys. I don't own jerseys. You guys worry about that one for you. Or let's see here. Let's get. Oh man, Michael. Michael does ask here. I'll give Michael the natural hat trick, 3 straight, and then we're going to move on, Mike. I wonder how much money the Penguins would lose a year when Sid is done. It's got to be a lot. It depends on how the Penguins are doing when Sid hangs them up. Let's just say he hung them up now, right? And you're going into this year with a brutal sort of roster. I don't think it's really possible to lose more than $20 million in the current NHL revenue sharing sort of environment. But yeah, you could lose $10 million like that pretty easily. Of course, don't forget, money makes money. And you would have to think that people buying the Penguins are not idiots. Whether they have to trim some expenses or do some crazy giveaways and, like, I don't know, giving away bobbleheads to all 18,000 people who show up rather than 7,500. If they have to do that to sell more tickets, you start doing those sorts of things, keep people in the building. Big Joe. Do you think Mario Lemieux, do you think 66 would reach out to the Hoffman family if a sale goes through to maybe get a bigger piece of the team, like a minority spot, but more than the token points that he has now? Boy, wouldn't that be the dream for everybody? In some sort of dream world? Yeah. In some sort of dream world, if I'm David Hoffman, I've already made that phone call. Mario, yeah, listen, want you to come back. I want you to oversee this team. I want you to be in Pittsburgh. I want you to be a part of things. I want you here. I need your help. I know chocolate. I know real estate. I know buying tiny cookie factories in the backside of a Florida strip mall. I know buying trucking companies in Louisiana. I don't know. I don't know hockey. Although they do own the Florida Everblades. That's a little bit different, I think, than owning an NHL team. In fact, I know from my experience in the ECHL, I would tell you it is nothing close to owning an NHL team. Entirely different businesses. They involve hockey, and that's where everything ends, or the similarities end. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I don't think it's real, but sure, why not? Michael Gregorich, not the other Michael. So are you saying FSG only wanted in on the team because they thought the Pens were contenders, and now that they aren't, they're willing to dump? Good Lord, you're putting some words in my mouth there, Michael. I said none of that. None of that. Nothing close to that, did I say? What are you doing to me? Oh, Driz, yeah. Reinbacher is the Canadiens defenseman. Yes, thank you, David Reinbacher. Yeah, he was a top 5 pick. You're not getting him for taking on 1 year of Carey Price. Relax. JR. Hey, Dan, what's the chance the Pens bring in one more D-man before the start of the season? Very slim. I'm not going to say no. If it were a trade and the Penguins could upgrade on defense, Chicago has like 10 defensemen, and 5 or 6 of them are the under 25 set. They've got a glut of guys under 25, and some of them are going to get squeezed into the press box this season. Like 2, maybe 3 will get squeezed into the press box, or at least, sometimes. If, let's just say, the Penguins had a chance to swipe one of those guys, sure, then everything is on the table, right? I think we've seen from Kyle Dubas, this guy. We've seen from Kyle Dubas, he doesn't care about overstuffing a locker room and letting the guys figure it out. It might rub some players the wrong way, guys who lose the battles, but he's not afraid to go there. So if he had 12 NHL quality defensemen, and he's able to pick up a couple, young guys who he thought would be around or could be part of the rebuild, Yeah, he would. The odds of it, you're talking less than 10%, I think, at that point, right? Let's see here. Let's go back to Brian. The Hoffman Group would be smart to do whatever it takes to bring Mario back into the fold and be a face for the team. Yeah, no, don't forget, Mario's 60. He's getting up there. He's 18 and 84. So he's like 59, 60 years. Good Lord. That, I don't know about the rest of you. For those of you who grew up watching Mario, does that make you feel ancient? But he devoted his entire life to hockey. And look, he was out having some fun, playing golf in Florida, playing golf with his son, who I guess is a pretty fair golfer. And he's not going to come back for the charity of it. I'll put it that way. I don't want to see the Penguins be in the bottom of the league, but we can't keep staying in the middle if we don't get a decent pick this year. Expect a 5-year playoff drought. I think that's fair. It is tough. You and I have talked, and I saw Josh Yohe wrote this yesterday, and it's what you and I have talked about, and I've written a couple times this summer. The Penguins are too good. The Penguins are not bottom 5 worthy as they currently sit. That's a problem if you're looking for that high pick. That is something unique in this Penguins rebuild, that they won't open that trap door and let themselves fall through it to hit bottom with a thud. Time, I suppose Dubas will be judged by that decision. I also suspect that Dubas full well knows that. And if he has to eventually settle a little bit on his trade ask to get it all done so that the Penguins are bottom 5 worthy or top 5 worthy, he does. But he can't admit that. He cannot say that whatsoever. Otherwise, the offers go to bargain bin immediately. So he's got to keep saying that. He almost has to keep believing it. I guess that's how negotiations go. I was always a very short negotiation guy. Here's what I want. Here's what I need. Can you do it? No? All right. Next. That's how I've always negotiated. I mean, sometimes I'll ask for a lot more than I want when I feel like the other person will give it to me. If I start much higher than I wanted to, I'll wiggle. Big Joe says maybe Sid will follow Mario's footsteps and be the new management face and or minority owner someday. It's a good thought, Joe. I'm going to lay a second thought on that. I want you to think of how many millions of dollars Sidney Crosby left on the table in the first 20 years. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. In the last 17 years of his playing career, because his first few are entry level. That's, nothing more the Penguins could really do back then. Nothing more he could do. But after his entry level contract, how many millions? Did he leave 10 million, 20 million on the table? Don't forget, after the Blackhawks Cup in 2010, Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane were making 3 and 4 million more than Sidney Crosby. 15 years ago, these guys were making several million more than Sidney Crosby. Let me get rid of Kyle Dubas here. So if for Sid to become a minority owner, think about where that money would be today if he had an extra $30 million in the bank account. Or I guess, factoring paying the agents and all the expenses that players do incur and the taxes, so on and so forth. If he had an extra $15 million in the bank account, how much more feasible being a team investor would be? And yet, I guarantee Sid has never put a thought into that. I would bet dollars to Tim Hortons Donuts that he's never bothered to even think about that. It wouldn't be, just doesn't sound like him, does it? Let's go to Logan. If you had to put a percentage chance on Karlsson trade happening before the season starts, where would you put it? I'd put it at 20%. Detroit holds the key here. Ottawa's going to be better. They've got some young defensemen. People keep talking about Toronto, but would Karlsson want to go to Toronto? Can you imagine Maple Leafs fans dealing with Erik Karlsson? They gave hell to Mitch Marner. They behaved terribly with a guy they home grew. The fans saw from the very beginning to the end of his Toronto career, and they behaved terribly toward him. Can you imagine how they'd treat Erik Karlsson? He has to look at his wife and his family and say, hell no. I'm not subjecting myself to that. I'm not going to go to the grocery store to pick up Lord knows what and have some guy in the next aisle screaming at me. Toronto really took a hit on that Mitch Marner story. Players might not admit it. I guarantee that'll enter some thought processes. It entered Mitch Marner's thought process. I really like Detroit for Karlsson. I think he should like Detroit. I think he makes them a playoff team. And I think if they continued to build this year, a few more studious trades, instead of just collecting draft picks like knickknacks or those little, Hummel figurines that grandma collected, they might actually be really good. I digress. Sports fan, Dubas needs to lower his price to move some of Rust, Raquel, Karlsson, etc. Holding out for an extra asset or two will become damaging from a draft position and space for the assets he is acquiring. Or actually, the assets he has acquired. Yeah. This is something we've talked about. This is something I've written about. Yes, there is going to be that point when he has to sort of figure out exactly what he's doing, where he is in the process. But boy, I understand all of your feelings. You want to get that high draft pick this year. I don't know what the top 5 in 2027 looks like. I know, that they've got a couple of stud prospects, like Mickey DuPont in 27. And there's even some 15-year-old people are salivating over for 2028 already. That stuff can change, though, in a couple of years. That stuff can change rapidly as guys don't mature at 16, 17, whatever it might be. But I understand why you want a high pick this year, and I think that's a very valid opinion. And I think Dubas will ease up into this season, at least on Raquel and Karlsson. I don't think he eases up on Brian Rust because Brian Rust provides value to the Penguins' rebuild. And I think Rust might provide more value to the rebuild being here than he would in terms of a trade acquisition. All right, Michael going for the 4-goal game here. Michael Thompson. Will we see Gino with Sid again on the power play, or will Gino remain on the second group? Good question. That is Todd Nelson's ballpark. And, I'd say you have to keep them separate. Malkin doesn't have that blast from the circle anymore. You saw what happened when Sullivan and Quinn went to the 5 right player approach rather than the 5 best players approach. That's going to carry a lot of water with Dan Muse. He's going to look at film. He's going to say, my God, the 5 best players sucked out loud for the 2 years before Mike Sullivan finally made that switch. I'm not going to make the same mistake. I would expect to see Malkin separated there. It also keeps Malkin's ice time down. If the Penguins had a better third-line center, maybe you could swap some minutes on the power play in exchange for some 5-on-5 break, but the Penguins really don't have that third-line center with offensive pop yet. Tristan Brose hasn't grabbed that job, stolen that job and said it's mine and provided that yet. I suspect he will be able to in the coming year or so, but it hasn't happened yet. All right, let's go to Jason. Dubas following the same rebuild format that Holland made for Detroit a decade ago. Didn't work out well for Detroit. You might know more than I do on that post-2016-17 sort of Detroit rebuild. When Zetterberg and Datsuk were gone, the last vestiges of that 2008-2009 Cup battle were gone. The Drapers and the Holmstroms and the Lidstroms and the Osgoods and all of those guys were gone. I don't remember Detroit trying to patchwork. I suppose they did, though, because they've not had a number 1 overall pick. They've not even had a number 2 overall pick. So I guess they didn't hit rock bottom. I don't remember them quite stocking up on prospects and draft picks like Dubas is trying to do, at least not with the ferocity. I know Steve Yzerman loves his draft picks. By the way, great story on Detroit hockey now. Let me go to, I'm going to post the link here. Where is it? It's about the Detroit Red Wings and how poorly they have done in the first round. Take a look at this. There, I just put the link there. They've gotten crushed in the first round of the draft. They've been hitting at a less than average clip. It's brutal. So anyway, I think that might be relevant. Then again, you always, you can pull up a 4th round draft pick like that guy. There's Sergey Murashov, 4th round pick, who looks to be an absolute stud, a number 1 goalie in the making. So you have to hit on some. Detroit hasn't hit on nearly enough, but they just keep buying lottery tickets and scratch offs, I guess. Okay, kids, that is 43 minutes. We talked very briefly about the Arty Party. I spelled Arty R-A-R-T-I-E. A-R-T-I-E. I guess people in Vancouver are like, it's A-R-T-Y. I don't know. Is there a correct way to spell Arty? I've always thought Arty was I-E. I digress. My tweet did over 10,000 impressions yesterday. It just went bananas because the Vancouver fans, they love this guy. I mean, they absolutely adore Arturs Silovs. They were seriously beside themselves with him. When I posted that picture of, he's in a Penguins jersey. Look at the Canucks mask, tear emojis and all of that sorts of things. Just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I don't know how many dozen retweets kind of had the same sentiment. You would have thought I had Taylor Swift's people after me again. It's like the same person just posting the same thing, but it was all sorts of different people. I can't wait to meet the guy at this point. What the fuss is over. This is a big year for him too. Really, I can't imagine he'll play in the Prospects Challenge next weekend. I wonder if Blomqvist will. That would be something very interesting. I suspect we'll see Murashov get some time, as well as the Penguins' third-round pick from Cape Breton, the very large goalie. Then again, the very large goalie was a little rough in the rookie camp in July. I mean, his angles were shaky. He clearly has talent. He clearly needs a good bit of coaching. That wasn't a diamond in the rough. That was finding a diamond in the rough covered by weeds. They might get something there, but it's going to take a minute. I don't know if they're going to throw him into that level of competition. Then again, they might. They might say, let's see what the kid has got. I haven't yet seen the Penguins prospect roster. I've actually was wondering if I was going to see that today. But let's see. Nope. I have the Penguins set on my phone. Whenever they tweet, I get an immediate alert. And they keep tweeting out like this season stuff. Like, hey, it's 35 days to the season. I'm like, oh, come on. You can't do that to me. I can't go running to my phone to see what you've tweeted. If there's news. I digress. I think we're going to wrap it up there, kids. I think 45 minutes here is about where we are going to end. I appreciate you all. I guess we'll do this again next week. Sure. Why not? Right? I took 2 weeks off. That was my off season. My own dumb fault for not taking more time. So we'll do it again. Although I might run into some issues next week, letting you know, because the Penguins are going to have a little bit of a rookie tournament team practice or two, in which case I will be there and not sitting here. So that's, but otherwise, yeah, we'll do it. All right. Have fun. Bye for now.